Hey everyone, it's Linnea here for LDRS Creative, and today I'm going to be creating another circular pirouette card using the Trick or Treat Pirouette stamp set along with the pirouette pattern templates. Now, this is something that you've seen me and other members of the design team do before, but I'm going to show you a fun way to cut up your finished panel and turn them to make a different look. But for now, I'm starting off with the traditional way of how I would normally use the pirouette pattern templates. So I have a piece of cardstock cut to 4 1/4 inches by 4 1/4 inches square, and so I'm using those largest little notches on the pirouette pattern templates. I lined up all 4 corners of my cardstock with those notches, and then I used that overlay, and I lined up this little twiggy so that it would come down towards the center of my card and then kind of flare out going in between those dashed lines so that I know that I have my stamp set up in each segment. I have 8 segments on that template, and so I try to keep my stamps inside of them as best as I can. I'm using Plum Crazy Hybrid ink, and I stamped that 4 times, so I just basically turned my cardstock and stamped, turned and stamped. And then once I had stamped 4 times, I picked up my cardstock piece, turned it 1 turn, and now I'm stamping another 4 times. Now, the way that the pirouette pattern templates are intended to be used is that you're going to adhere your paper to this template and pick it up and turn it and stamp, and pick it up and turn it and stamp. But it kind of, I don't like the sound of things peeling off of tape, and it kind of hurts my fingernails a little bit, and I always end up stabbing myself with the paper. So I like to keep it adhered onto my template as much as I can and just turn the template rather than turning the paper itself, but do this however you're most comfortable. Once I have my first piece on, I started doubling up my images. So I have the little spider and the skull on there, and I'm going to go ahead and stamp using Raven Hybrid ink and Tropical Sea Hybrid ink. I stamped and turned my template 4 times, and then I'm going to lift up my white cardstock, turn that once, and then I can stamp and turn my entire template 4 more times, and I'll have the full 8 stamps on my background. But I only had to go through peeling off my cardstock from my template just that one time doing it this way. It's a big time saver, and it kind of saves my nerves because I don't have to hear those terrible noises of tape on the paper, which I know is a weird thing to be weird about, but I'm a weird kind of person. I've sped up this last clip of me completing my pirouette because I'm doing the same exact thing. I have 2 stamps mounted. I have the pumpkin and the little stars, and I'm stamping with In Your Face Orange and Dandelion inks. And then once I'm done with that, I'm going to grab the little tiny ghosty and stamp him with Alloy Hybrid ink. And that's going to complete my pirouette. Now, here's where some of you might cringe a little bit. I'm going to cut this into quarters. So this was 4 1/4 by 4 1/4 inches square, so I'm going to cut each of these squares to 2 1/8 of an inch. Just cutting straight down the middle, and that's going to give me 2 long pieces, and then straight down the middle of each of those is going to give me 4 squares. So here's how it originally looked like. This is how I stamped it. But I thought, how fun would it be to turn them each so that instead of having the pattern kind of going from the inside out, now it goes from the outside in, and it gives it a completely different look. Now you do have the seams of where those 4 squares kind of meet up in the center, but it really doesn't bother me, and in the finished product, you can't really tell. I mean, you can tell that it's there, but it looks like that's how it's supposed to be, and I think it's just a different way to add something new to your pirouettes. I grabbed a piece of pattern paper from the Haunted Halloween 6x6 paper pack. This is last year's Halloween paper pack, but it is by far my favorite Halloween paper pack. I love this year's as well. You've heard me rave about this year's paper pack, but this one just has these bright lime greens and purples, and I love it. I ended up not using this pattern that I'm using on today's card last year at all, so I had 2 sheets of that left, so I thought, why not use it today? I'm creating a card base that is 5 inches by 5 inches. So my card was 5 inches by 10, and I scored that right down the center, and I'm just going to trim off any tiny little piece because I do buy my cardstock is never cut just exactly perfectly, so sometimes there's a little bit hanging off, even if you trim and score perfectly, the manufacturing process might have a little bit of, something a little off, or it could definitely be me cutting a little bit off too. But either way, I always end up just trimming off any tiny piece that hangs off my card. I'll use liquid adhesive to add my pattern paper onto my card base, which is cut to 4 3/4 by 4 3/4, and then I have my pieced together background that is 4 1/4 by 4 1/4. And like I said, you can kind of see those seams there, but not enough to make me care. I love this outside in pirouette look. I think it's a really fun way to add something different to your pirouette cards. Thanks so much for joining me on this tutorial. I'll see you again soon. Bye!